Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to play with these brand new 10-ounce snow globe mason jar sublimation tumblers from Craft Haven. I learned about these from Jessica Flynn in her Flynn Sisters exclusives group that she has, where she does like a mentorship Patreon. I don't know if I can say Patreon anymore. Mentorship group. So she was using these and I had to snatch them up. So these are LED light tumblers that you can use with a straw, or you can just keep the light on and use them to hang, or you can even put a candle in them. So I am going to play with these today. One of them I am going to sublimate, and the other one I am going to use epoxy and turn it into a Peekaboo fall tumbler. I am beginning with the Peekaboo Tumbler, and I'm going to fill it with these little holographic pumpkins, as well as fall colored leaves and little black bats. And these little glitter pieces are from the Glitter Guy, so I will link those below. As you can see, it was quite the struggle shoving these little pumpkins in there. They kept wanting to fling up and hit me in the face and fall all over the place. So I am just doing my best to work those suckers in there and fill them up with all the little cutesy bat pumpkin fall little glitter pieces. And I'm going to speed this video up because this took quite a long time to fill that little hole. After I had those glitters in there, I could have put more in, but I was tired of shoving them into the hole, so I just decided to settle. But after I had them in there, I gave them a good shake to separate those a little bit. Now I'm going to mix my water with glycerin. It's vegetable glycerin, 1-to-1 ratio. And you'll see when I pour the glycerin in here, it separates, and you can see a whole bunch of little stringy pieces. You want to mix that solution combination until the little stringiness is no longer visible. Now, I have made several snow globe tumblers before, but they've always been the hog style tumblers with the plastic sleeve. I get them from the Stainless Depot company. I do enjoy making those. They are a lot more time consuming than what I found when I was making these ones that are glass. The ones that I'm used to making, you have to, the interior, the inside piece is stainless steel, so you sand it down, you put your glitter on it, epoxy, whatever, and then you have to also put a sealant around the sleeve when you put that in, so usually I use epoxy. Then you fill it with your glitter and your water, and then I use clear caulking to fill what you would be the butt of the tumbler before I spin that bottom lid on, and I have to let it sit for about 24 hours before I flip it and shake it, and then I decorate the outside. So these glass tumblers, you skip all those in between steps, so you just go straight from filling to sealing. And so I wasn't sure how to seal this. What Jessica was showing us in her group is that she used a 1-inch circle of Gorilla tape. I think that's what it was. It was like clear Gorilla tape. I didn't have any, but I do have Oracle 651 permanent vinyl that's clear. And so I decided to use a 1-inch circle of that to seal over the top of the hole after I wiped it down with acetone. And it seemed to work okay. I don't know if it's as strong as the Gorilla tape that Jessica used, but it worked just fine. So after I had my solution in there, I put my finger over the hole and I gave it a shake. When I put my finger over the hole and shook it, I think I let some air in it, because once I seal it and then tip it upside down, there's a bigger bubble in this one than there was originally. So I think I let a little bit of air seep back in there, but that's okay. It's going to be a peekaboo, and you are going to be able to see a little bit of the bubble, but it's still beautiful. So now I'm sealing it with that 1-inch clear Oracle 651 tape. And I am going to, after I do that, I'm going to push it down really good, and then I'm going to put a layer of UV resin over the bottom of it, and then turn my light on for 2 rounds of 60 seconds and make sure that everything is sealed in nice and good. Here I'm just testing out the LED light before I put any epoxy or anything over the top of the exterior of that tumbler. So it looks so cool with the light on, and even with just a little bit of glitter, like I said, I could have filled more glitter in there, but even with the small amount of glitter I put in there, it still looks really cool. So I'm super happy with how this turned out, and now I need to sand it before I put the UV resin over it because I forgot. I want to make sure the whole thing is sanded because I want that UV resin to stick really good because I am going to put epoxy over this too. So I'm sanding the whole thing, and I'm going to take it upstairs and wash it with Dawn dish soap and then bring it back down and then apply the UV resin. I am using Resin Rockers UV resin for this, and it cures very quickly and very hard. So I got two different kinds of resin. I'm not sure which one this is. One says the hard type and the other one doesn't say the hard type. And they're both good. So Resin Rockers UV resin. So I'm just applying it in the middle and then dabbing it, and I got too much on there, so I have to scoop some out with my glove and then just make sure it goes all the way over to the edge but not fall over the edge, and smooth it out, and then hit it with my torch real quick to pop any of those bubbles, and then put the UV lamp over the top of it for 60 seconds 2 times. For the Peekaboo, I am just using some stencil vinyl leaves that I cut out last year. And so I just did an abundance of leaves because I made a bunch of fall tumblers. And so I just had these left over. It's just a free file I found in Cricut. If you just type up leaves, you can pick and choose whichever leaves you want. So I cut them in various sizes, and I'm just going to place them all around the tumbler, just spread out sporadically in groups of 2 or 3 until I'm leaving like a 1/2 inch on the top of the tumbler and like a 1/2 inch on the bottom. And then I'm going to use spray paint over the top of those in some fall colors, just spurts of spray paint, or bursts, I guess you would say. And then remove the stencil vinyls and put some epoxy over the top of it. I'm going to go ahead and use electrical tape to tape off the threads of this tumbler now before I spray paint, so I don't have to worry about using acetone to clean off the spray paint from the threads later. And also I need that electrical tape on there anyway when I'm going to apply the epoxy, because I don't want the epoxy to seep up over the top of that rim. So I'm just going to tape it now and then spray it and then remove the stencil vinyl and apply my epoxy. I chose to use 4 different colors for my spray paint: a wine stain, a really bright fall like blood maple color, and then 3 different types of browns. I will link all the spray paint colors below in case you want to use the same ones. So after I've sprayed it, I'm going to go ahead and remove those stencil vinyls. I wanted a little less purple and a little more brown tones coming through on that tumbler, so I'm adding a Harvest, it's called Harvest, additive to the epoxy to put over the top just to lighten up that purple just a little bit. So I'm going to put 1 layer of this epoxy over the tumbler and then peel off the tape, and then the next morning it will be ready to apply the vinyl outlines. I had these printed from last year, just like I said about the stencil vinyl pieces. So these all have been sitting in my little craft tubs for a year. So super convenient, made this project go a little faster than it would have had I not had these ready to go. So I'm just placing those sizes over the top of the Peekaboos that match, and then it will be ready for one last coat of epoxy. Wow. So pretty, so cool, so easy. This one, the sublimation, was a little harder, and I did rip my sublimation paper on purpose because when I'm making t-shirts, I know I like to rip it so it doesn't leave that press line on the t-shirt. I've never sublimated a glass tumbler, so I just ripped my paper just in case it left the press lines. I have a feeling I would have been fine just cutting it. So, but that's okay. It ripped just fine. I placed it on the tumbler. When you're doing sublimation, you always want to reverse your image. So it's going to be printed backwards, and then when you sublimate, it'll be the right side up. I'm not including the sublimation video on how I stuck it in the sublimation, my Cricut Mug Press, and then did it for the whole time and then peeled off the paper, because I already have a video on that, but I will link that video for you right here in the top corner. If I were to do this again, I would definitely choose a much darker image because I struggled to find a glitter light enough that was chunky that would let the image show through. I have used fine glitters before in my snow globe tumblers, and that is a disaster. Fine glitters do not work well with this unless I'm doing something wrong. I've never had them work well. They always clump up. So I always use chunky glitters, and I didn't have a white. I had an opal but it still pulled purples and pinks, and you couldn't really see the image that well. So I went ahead and just went with this orangey, peachy color, coral color, whatever you want to call it. And I believe this is from Glitter Heart Co. I will link it below once I go downstairs and figure out what it's called. But anyway, so when you do an image for sublimation, and you have a see-through surface behind the image, you might want to do something a little bit darker so that image really stands out a little bit more. It's still cute, but it would have been cuter if it was a really dark image. And the rest of the process is the same. So you fill it up with that half glycerin, half water. You tap out the bubbles, you tape it up and seal it with UV resin. And these are the ending results of both tumblers. These would make the perfect Thanksgiving gift, holiday gift, Christmas gift, whatever, or just to put in your room for a nice cozy atmosphere. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will leave everything I linked below in the description box. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thanks for watching.